This kid was born without any love from his family. On the contrary, he was thrown into a dark dungeon by his own father to fend for himself. Because he was one of the 12 children of the heavenly demon, the leader of the martial world. The big boss immediately beat him up to set an example for everyone. Son of the heavenly demon, how come you are just trash? He became even more furious and attacked. He, with his small body, was punched. In this place, only the strongest can survive. His hand grabbed a stone and used it as a weapon to hit the big guy. Then, he followed with angry punches and a terrifying murderous look. He became the new leader of that place, and later became the strongest heavenly demon, the leader of the martial world. Mr. Young, however, when he ascended to heaven, opened his eyes again. He was in someone else's body. This place was not the martial world either. Did he cross over? This guy just held a branch and could confidently fight with a bunch of thugs with weapons, at lightning speed. He sent the bald guy to reunite with his ancestors, and the others rushed to attack him, but they couldn't. They were fed with onion porridge instead, and in a blink of an eye, all the bloodthirsty thugs were taken care of by him. Everyone was shocked. Was this still the trash young master of the Dmitri family? Roma, the eldest son of the Dmitri blacksmith family, although he was 25 years old, he only knew how to eat and make trouble, famous for being a noble trash, indulging in debauchery all day long. He even committed suicide when he knew he had to join the army. At that time, the person in front of him was not Roma but someone else. He was Mr. Young, the master of the heavenly demon sect, the leader of the martial world. He was reincarnated into this body, however, it was too bad. Then he just moved his body a little and almost couldn't bear it. He could only blame himself for having to become stronger as soon as possible. Then he could act freely. The red-haired guy Kevin, who had just been saved by him, also ran over to thank him for helping him escape from those evil bloodthirsty gangsters. They relied on their power and influence to force people to do their bidding at sky-high prices. Then they destroyed their crops, making them unable to pay interest. They wanted to target his beautiful sister. Roma also noticed his special look. He must be someone who could use it. Before leaving, he also arranged everything for Kevin. At this time, Miss Flora of the Lauren family was also on her way here. She was his fiancée, arranged by his family. However, she did not accept her fiancé as a bad guy like that. As soon as she met him, she shouted, "Forget about their marriage." Okay, deal. This shocked his sister. How could their marriage be cancelled so easily? You have to know that the Dmitri family, Roma met his father to talk about this matter and was immediately scolded by him. Even if you are a fool of this house, you can't be that stupid. You just have to marry that beautiful noble girl to consolidate your family's position in the upper-class nobility, but you can't do it either. Then he threw a cup at his head to vent his anger. Blood also flowed down. He also said that if this marriage was cancelled, he would have to go to war in 6 months. Moreover, the conflict with the bloodthirsty gang just now, he would also have to take responsibility himself. The old man thought this guy would cry and beg him like before. After that, Roma confidently said that he would handle everything himself. Isn't that surprising? That night, Mother helped me persuade Father. After all, he is the eldest son in the house. In the end, he had to send the captain of the guard, Jonathan, to protect me. The next day, I decided to go alone to deal with the Bloodfawn gang. Roma carefully entered a small alley, wanting them to show up. Sure enough, a few members of the Bloodfawn gang appeared. They had guns and rushed to attack me. But they were too naive and easily defeated by me. 2 of their teammates were shocked. They said that this guy was just a waste. How could he be so strong? Meanwhile, my attendant was calling for help from the guard. 2 members of the Bloodfawn gang attacked me again, but they were also easily taken down. Roma didn't kill them right away. He wanted to ask them about their hideout. Then he went directly to the tavern where the Bloodfangs were based. Inside, countless thugs stared at me like a fat piece of meat. The bar owner was the first one to attack me and was knocked out by a punch. Next, all the people from the Blood Fawn gang rushed at me in a blink of an eye. Roma had already taken down 3 of them, making everyone scared. Wasn't he the idiot of the Dmitri family? How could he be so strong? It was because the heavenly demon had enhanced Roma's physique with this martial arts technique in a short period of time. They wanted to use their numbers to attack me, but these flies couldn't do anything. When the bar owner woke up, everyone had been dealt with by me. He finally had to tell me that the real hideout of the Bloodfangs was in Lauren. When the captain of the guard Jonathan arrived, everything had become a mess. Everyone couldn't believe that one person could do this. At this time, the leader of the Blood Fawn gang also received news that all their branches had been defeated by Roman de Dmitri alone. He couldn't believe it. He sent all his assassins to kill me and restore the reputation of the Blood Fawn gang. Meanwhile, in Lauren's house, there was an emergency meeting. It seemed that the Bacon family was targeting them and preparing for an invasion war. With their difficult situation, they couldn't resist. So, the Lord had to marry his daughter to the Dmitri family for help. Even though they were also the richest family in this northeast region. Flora outside heard everything and didn't know what to say to them. That the marriage between the 2 families had been cancelled and their lifeline had been cut off. How could this be? Just then, a soldier ran in and reported. It turned out that Captain Jonathan and his soldiers had arrived in Lauren. They were stopped while Roman was causing trouble in Lauren Square. Dragging the leader of the Blood Fawn gang, just a moment ago, he was very confident because he had many people and weapons. How could he be defeated by a stupid noble? Then he had to open his dog's eyes and see. All his men were killed in a flash. His body kept trembling and begged for mercy. But had he ever spared anyone? It was ridiculous in front of these people. I made him sell salt and only heard his miserable screams. Captain Jonathan also witnessed this scene and was terrified. Was this still the same trash young master? Lord Lauren, after learning that Roma had personally captured and executed the leader of the Blood Fawn gang, was also stunned. He immediately called his son-in-law over to ask him about it. After meeting him, he questioned him. Why did he come to Lauren's territory and do such a thing? Roma also told him the whole story, that the Blood Fawn gang had harmed the people of Dmitri before, so he had to make them pay the price. He then started to criticize him, saying that he had no authority in Lauren and dared to act so recklessly. Roma directly replied, "Isn't it because you are too incompetent?" He knew that the leader of the Blood Fawn gang would not dare to do anything to him here, so he had to come here and say it. It was really shameful. In the end, the Lauren family could not do anything to him because they had not been able to deal with the Blood Fawn gang from the beginning. As soon as they left, Lord Lauren secretly praised this son-in-law, wondering how everyone could spread rumors that he was a waste. He was very satisfied, but did not know that his daughter had already broken off the engagement before, and reported it when she returned home. His father heard everything from Captain Jonathan and could not believe his ears. He had really changed. Roma did not hide it either, admitting that he had personally wiped out the Blood Fawn gang. But how did he do it? He had to be secretive in the past, practicing swordsmanship to challenge their son. When he arrived at the training ground, the captain announced that today everyone would spar with the young master. But after a while, no one dared to step up, because they were afraid of losing face in front of the knights. And winning would not get them anything either. The captain finally had to call up the vice-captain of the knights, Chris, who had to deal with Roma's troubles all this time and looked down on him. He always regarded him as a piece of trash. He wanted to take this opportunity to teach him a lesson. On Roma's side, he just sneered, saying that he was too young and always made him more angry. As soon as the match started, Chris quickly approached and attacked him, but was easily blocked by him. He was immediately shocked. How could this trash block his attack? He could also feel that Roma's strength and defensive posture were very solid. Was this just a coincidence? He did not believe it. Chris once again rushed up to attack him, but failed again. Then another sword strike came, almost hitting his head. Then he realized that his opponent was very strong. If he continued like this, he would be finished. He just shouted, "What was that? A boring warm-up. Now it's my turn." Roma's speed was as fast as lightning. He approached and launched countless attacks, making his opponent breathless. He had to use his sword's most brilliant skill, a powerful aura strike that shook the ground. Everyone thought Roma was done for. But he bent down and dodged the attack. Next, he defeated the vice captain of the Knights with a gentle blow, shocking everyone and making them speechless. You should know, Chris was a swordsmanship genius, who achieved the title of 2-star knight at a very young age. His father, the Lord, was overjoyed. He couldn't believe that his son, who used to be considered a waste, could be so strong. He agreed to grant him one wish. Roma also directly told him about going to the battlefield in half a year. Everyone thought he didn't want to go, but this guy said he would choose his own team to fight. His father initially wanted to stop him, but seeing Roma's determination, he finally agreed to this. The next day, Chris was assigned to teach aura to the young master. This made him very shocked. He had just been defeated, and now he had to teach how to sense mana to him. This was really bad. His master said, "I want you to teach the young master and see what makes him different. If you can do this, I will transfer all my secrets to you." That is also the secret to becoming a 3-star knight. Chris of course didn't miss this opportunity. On the other hand, Roma was also secretly thinking about how people in this world use energy. It was completely inferior to the martial world. He would test it himself in tomorrow's sword practice. The next day, although very disgusted, Chris still had to teach him about aura. Aura is a way of using mana, specifically the form that knights use their mana. Mages use mana by writing mana words to cast spells, while knights write mana words throughout their bodies. The pioneer of the concept of aura was Emperor Alexander. Unlike mages, who write mana words in different objects and forms, he was the first to discover that writing mana words throughout the body would enhance their physique. People can increase their strength by concentrating and releasing that amount of mana. However, to do this, they have to be geniuses among geniuses. And mages are even rarer. Only 1 or 2 mages out of 10,000 people can become aura knights who require at least being able to sense mana. Normally, people would take more than a year for this, while he only took half a year. So he was also called a bit of a genius. Roma just sneered, because he had sensed mana long ago, thanks to his experience from his previous life. Only when using mana to release aura then he would be considered a 1-star knight. In addition, he could use aura to coat his sword blade, as well as strengthen his body to become more powerful. While he was explaining, Roman next to him had already released a powerful aura. This guy is hacking or what? He also understood that everything about using Kate in his previous life had no effect in this world. If he had to distinguish, then their way of using aura was similar to cultivating in the martial world below. But their way of releasing the stored mana was the reason why this method was less effective. Chris was still confused, thinking that he had been hiding his true strength all this time. He asked, how could he be defeated so easily? He directly said, "Have you ever thought about your training method?" This made Chris stunned. Wasn't that obvious? Roma realized that this guy had some potential, similar to the blood demon he had fought with in his previous life. He was willing to abandon his pride to become stronger. But he couldn't directly teach Chris. That would be like a horse following the old path. He would have to observe Roma for the next 6 months to figure out everything by himself. That night, he thought a lot. His genius labels were just a joke in front of the ruler. The next morning, Chris decided to go to the battlefield with him. This surprised the captain, but he didn't object to it. Before leaving, he also forgot to buy some good equipment for his disciple so that he could return safely. That afternoon, he went to see Kevin, who had said the day before that as long as you serve me, you will have everything, money, status, and no more suffering. Kevin immediately kowtowed until he bled, swearing to be loyal to him, as long as he promised to protect his family. My life will be yours. The next day, Kevin was arranged to stay in the mansion of Old Han, who would teach him how to adapt to the new life. Meanwhile, Roman was in the library to learn more about this world. The higher the level of the Light Knights, the more benefits they would get from the kingdom. However, no one had ever heard of anyone reaching the 7-star Knight level. The highest level was only 6 stars. There were 12 people known as 6-star Knights. Their power and authority were no different from the royal family, and they were called the 12 Swords of the Great Six. For mages, those who had reached level 7 were given the title of Grand Mage. They were creatures regarded as half-human and half-god. Disasters were waiting to erupt. A single spell could level the ground and cover the sky when equal in force. They were more dangerous than 6-star Light Knights. This world was indeed interesting. Roma asked Old Han to find him a quiet place suitable for training. Then, he told the butler not to let anyone disturb him during this time. Even water and food were not needed. Was he immortal? Then, he carefully sat down and activated the demonic cult method, the first step of the human realm, to remove the impurities in his body. His whole body was in pain, mana that should have flowed throughout his body was blocked. It turned out that this body contained too many impurities. Fortunately, he only used a small amount of mana, otherwise, his body wouldn't be able to bear it. A week later, Lord Lauren and Miss Flora suddenly visited Dimichi. It turned out that after he learned that his daughter had broken off her engagement with Roma, he was very angry. This marriage was their only lifeline to deal with the war between the Bacon clan. Not only that, but other clans also helped Bacon to share Lauren's land. Therefore, they had to be shameless. They waited until the afternoon, but Roma still did not show up. This made Mr. Han worried. He could not stand it anymore, and ran directly to the room of Roma's father, in a very angry way. He said, "If you are not satisfied with us, just send us back." This made Roma's father even more angry. Wasn't it his daughter who had broken the engagement first? Now they came here to complain like victims. It was a joke. He also said, "About a month ago, we received a contact from the Bacco family. They said that if we decided to have a prearranged marriage with them instead of the Lauren family, they would give us a chance to connect with the central government and give us a part of the Lauren territory. However, I still decided to reject their offer. The reason was very simple, because the Dmitri family had enough power at the right time." The Lauren father and son did not know what to say when Roma rushed in. His appearance was like a handsome Korean guy, shocking everyone. How could he be so beautiful? He directly announced that he wanted to end this marriage because of those who had looked down on him when they had not seen his face. This would be the price that the Lauren family had to pay. In the past week, Roman had eliminated all the impurities in his body. His appearance also changed a little. Now he was a completely different person. His father was shocked when he knew that he could circulate mana. Because very few people had this ability. His son had become a genius among 10,000 people. He was no longer useless as before. He and the Dmitri family would always support him from behind. This made him feel unfamiliar with his father, because in his previous life his father was completely different. However, this was not bad on the outside. Miss Flora had waited for him since early morning to apologize for what she had done before. She was ignored by him even though she had explained everything. After the party of the Eastern nobles, his condition was very bad. Butler Han also confirmed this. Since he came back, he seemed to lose his reason, survived and hid in his room to drink alcohol. This made him suspect a coincidence. The host of that party was the eldest son of the Bacco family. Roman seemed to realize the cause of everything that led to the suicide of the owner of this body before, coincidentally a few days ago. The Bacco family also sent him an invitation to attend their party. Roma naturally did not refuse this opportunity to see what they wanted to play. The next day, he called Kevin over and wanted him to become his sword. However, Kevin had never touched a sword in his life, but he had a very strong will. The test was also very harsh. Kevin would have to cut off one of his arms, make himself suffer and endure until the last minute. Only then could one become stronger than anyone. Kevin, after a while of thinking, finally made a decision. He was determined to become stronger. A sword directly cut off one of his arms. Although it was very painful, he did not scream at all, but passed out from blood loss. Turns out, before Kelvin cut his own hand, he put him in a hallucination of a magic spell. So Kevin still hasn't lost one hand. He passed the test the next day. Roma decided to teach him the technique of mana enhancement. It's not a common skill, but a magic spell used by the Mad Mage. Soul Spirit Technique, a dangerous technique that eroded the soul of the user and allowed them to exert power under extreme pain. Even if the user was to cut off their limbs, they would never lose their will. If you master this technique, you will have the power to protect everything around you. Next, he taught swordsmanship to Kevin, who was next to Chris. He couldn't stand sitting idle for 2 weeks. He wanted to learn more fighting skills from him. But Roma said, "You are learning by just observing, and everyone has a different way of learning. Not everyone is the same." If he taught Chris, it would be like forcing him to follow an old path. He had to find his own way. Then, he threw him a wooden sword and asked him to fight with Kelvin. He said, even though they were not enemies, he would guide Kelvin to defeat him. This made Chris very angry, because he was looked down on as a second-level knight. How could he lose to someone who had only practiced swordsmanship for a week? The fight started, and Chris was fast as lightning. He rushed to attack Kevin. Roma was guiding him step by step so that he could fight, but Kevin's body couldn't react in time, and he was beaten up. Roma's voice continued to cheer him on. He used sound transmission that only Kevin could hear. Following his instructions, Kevin continued to fight. But his body was still much slower than Chris. Even though Roma had read all the movements of his opponent, Kevin couldn't keep up. Chris also noticed something strange. How could a newbie dodge his dangerous attacks? Kelvin's will was also very strong. Even though his body was covered with wounds, he didn't give up. This made Chris really angry. He rushed to finish him off. But at this moment, Kelvin used all his strength. He followed the young master's instructions and slashed forward, breaking the opponent's stance. Then, he turned around very quickly and slashed again. But in the end, he still couldn't win. Chris had his sword knocked away. The fight just now helped him realize how weak he was. If it wasn't for the same move as the fight with Roma before, he would have lost already. He realized that he needed to find his own way to become stronger. So, he didn't need Roma to teach him directly, just observing and learning everything was enough. A week after the social party hosted by the Bacco family arrived, Butler Han had specially ordered a fancy suit for him, which would surely make the girls drop a basket of eggs if he wore it. Chris and Kelvin also went with him. At the Bacco's house, many nobles were present there. They were constantly gossiping about Roma as a waste. "I can't believe he dared to show up at the party after being dumped." The door opened, and Roma walked in, making everyone stunned by his handsome appearance. They couldn't believe their eyes. Is this the idiot of the Dimitri family? He looks so different from before. Miss Sophia, the beautiful daughter of the Brazil family, immediately came to greet him. Although she had never met him before, it seemed that he was not as bad as the rumors said. Before coming here, he had carefully looked through the families participating in the party to have more knowledge to chat with girls and make connections. Everyone was shocked. How did this guy become so knowledgeable? He quickly became the center of attention of the party. The eldest son of the Bako family couldn't stand it anymore. He directly asked the butler to call him out to talk privately. Outside, Kelvin's naive appearance was mocked by some followers of other families. So you guys chose death. Meanwhile, he had arrived at Antoine's room and talked for a while after probing. He finally said, actually, the secret that made the owner of this body commit suicide was that he found out that I was sleeping with his cousin, and all of that was arranged by him. He used that method to force me to break up with Flora. But I have a crush. A memory flashed in Roma's head and he knew the whole truth. If his marriage fell apart because Roma had tainted the direct descendants of the Bako family, then Dimitri's honor would fall straight to the bottom of the abyss. Roma seemed to lack confidence to face his father's wrath. He also didn't want to cancel his marriage with the one he loved to solve everything. Roma decided to run away by committing suicide. At that time, Antoine schemed to make him accept the marriage with the Bako family as a fool. He changed his attitude when he knew the truth, and directly refused the marriage with the Bako family. You threatened me wrong, just do whatever you like. I was also called a fool. Even if I have one or two more rumors about that hypocritical evil, nothing will change. Should I help the Lauren family to hinder the Bako clan to relieve some pressure? Anthony's face had no blood left. Because the strongest family in the Northeast was Dimitri's family. He also realized that Roma had completely changed from before, becoming very dangerous. In the end, he had to keep quiet about this, because he didn't want to confront the Dimitri family. Roman then left the party, outside the entourage of other families who were bullying Kelvin. After he asked them to take back their insults, Dimitri's family. Chris couldn't act rashly, because this was Bako's house. It would affect their family badly. Suddenly, the attack of the Knight of Bako was blocked by him. Then he adjusted his jaw slightly, making him unable to react. His hand kept hitting his face. Everyone who witnessed the scene was horrified. The knight there kept begging for mercy. This made Anthony very angry and came to question him. But he didn't recognize who was the one who had the power to decide here. With his momentum, Roma made him unable to move. Like that, the Knight of Bako was beaten up. For a stupid fight, Bako's face was hit hard. Everyone who witnessed it realized that Roma was no longer a fool like before. Just by making a mistake, their whole family would have to face his anger. On the way home, Chris and Kevin apologized to him for not beating them up. He also understood why they did that. To endure such humiliation, they must be very uncomfortable too. Thank you for enduring until I came. Impatience only brings trouble. So their decision helped them prevent the worst scenario from happening. Even if they had to endure humiliation, someone had to remember that person's face well. You must never forget your own anger. To follow someone who lives a life above 10,000 people, one has to adapt to this way of behaving. Back at his house, he began investigating the Bako family, a family that settled in the Northeast for over a century. After a few members of the Bako family worked for the central government, their family rose to become a powerful family in the region. However, their military strength was not very strong, which showed that their power came mainly from the central government. There are 2 empires and 6 kingdoms on the land of 6 salamanders. Among them, Cairo Kingdom is the smallest and weakest country, and becomes a fat prey. Cairo Kingdom had no choice but to ally with the central government's army in order to survive. So here, the central government has a lot of power. If the Bako clan borrowed this money by credit, without any collateral, it seems they invested in the Bag Mercenary Corps. The Bag Mercenary Corps is a group of hundreds of mercenaries from all over the place. But the Corps is in the bag. Through their actions, they will probably attack Lauren in half a month. This battle between the two houses is an opportunity for you to regain the dominant position for the Dmitri house in the northeast. Although very powerful, the Dmitri clan is not considered a threat by other clans. At the same time, a Beluga-level mercenary came to Dmitri. He came here to forge a set of fine clothes, to protect himself from sudden battles. He noticed the crowd in front of him. It turned out to be a recruitment announcement from the Dmitri house, 30 people, as long as they were still breathing. The salary was also very high, 8 silver coins per month. The special condition was that they would only work for Roma Dmitri, not the Dmitri clan. No one thought anyone would join, but there were more than 100 people waiting in line to apply. They also wanted to become like Kelvin, who had stepped on an elephant after following Roma. Moreover, Roma was very good to Kelvin, giving him 3 days off to visit his family before leaving. Butler Han did not forget to give him new clothes and a salary of 30 silver coins per month. Kevin hugged a loaf of bread and returned home, thinking his sister and parents would be very happy. Anyway, in the previous days they had nothing to eat every day. But when he got home, he was shocked. Everyone looked very happy and was living in a lavish house. It turned out that Mr. Han had come and given us this house to live in. He also gave us a piece of land to farm. I heard it was an order from a young Master Roma. Everyone at the castle also helped us a lot. Knowing this, Kevin burst into tears. Indeed, the decision to follow the young master was very correct. So, the news of Kelvin's family quickly spread throughout the town. Everyone also had a different look at young Master Roma, which is why so many people joined the election. Luca also couldn't believe it when he heard it. He had left here for 2 years, and he didn't expect the young master of the Dmitri house to change so much. This was really interesting. He also wanted to verify it himself. Roma's father was shocked when he learned that more than 500 people had applied for recruitment. The next day, the official selection began. There were many people like Lucas, who questioned the rumors before. They could only confirm when they saw young Master Roma. He declared strongly, "I Roman Dmitri have no intention of living and hiding in a remote territory. I will continue to fight to achieve a higher position than I have now. And in that process, your lives being endangered is inevitable. So anyone who is afraid can leave here immediately. However, you will regret not being able to stand by and witness your leader standing at the highest position, holding the power of this continent." This made everyone dumbfounded. Wasn't he too arrogant? Look at this face, it's quite prestigious. The selection process is very simple. Each person will step into their position. 3 archers will shoot at them. The arrows may just graze you, or they may hit you. Only those who don't flinch when 3 arrows are fired will pass the first round of selection. The challenge begins. The candidates have stepped into their positions. They think to themselves, the 3 archers must be very skilled. Just stand still and you will pass, otherwise not. The second arrow hit his leg directly. He screamed in pain. The medical team was ready to help. This scared everyone. Isn't this suicide? Some people started to be afraid and didn't dare to do the challenge. They were scolded by Chris. The cowards who were still in the training area quickly ran away immediately. This was arranged by him last night. He planted some people among the candidates to apply. They would be shot, but the wounds would not be dangerous. To test the others, the reward was a lot of money, so they all agreed to do this. Back to the present, about 100 people quit after seeing others get shot. The next candidate was a guy with orange hair. Although he was shaking like a leaf, he still wanted to become Roma's attendant. The first arrow was fired, and it slipped past his face. He hesitated and groaned. Should he stop? But in the end, he still stood still to complete the challenge, just like that. The audition went smoothly. Besides those who quit, there were about 400 people participating. The number of people who passed was 120 people. However, he only accepted 30 people. Therefore, everyone had to participate in the second round. If you pass this round and become my subordinate, you will be able to live the life of a predator. The rule is very simple, as you can see. There are many different types of wooden swords prepared for you. Choose the sword that you like. Prove your value by fighting me hand to hand. This made everyone dumbfounded. Did he intend to fight one-on-one with 120 people here? Moreover, those who can last for a minute will receive better conditions than on the notice. Hearing that, a tall man couldn't help but rush forward. His name was Voken. He looked down on Chairman Roma and didn't believe that he was so weak that he couldn't last a minute. The first match started, and he rushed to attack him. He couldn't hit him at all, but instead tripped over his leg and fell down. This guy was really weak, not even 3 seconds had passed yet. Below, Lucas also realized that he belonged to a different level. He dodged the attack with extremely fast and light movements. He was indeed a terrifying person. There would be very few people who could last for a minute like that. So, an hour after the start of the second round of selection, everyone thought Roma would be exhausted and easy to pass through. However, that didn't happen. 60 matches and 60 people were eliminated one by one. Gradually no one dared to come up to fight. At this time, Lucas stepped up to take the challenge. He could also feel tremendous pressure from Roma and believed that his words before becoming a ruler were true. The match had just started, and Lucas rushed to attack him. But all his attacks were blocked, even though he used a small knife as a hidden weapon. It had no effect. The sword was easily blocked. To survive for a minute, he decided he would have to take the initiative and attack continuously. Ruman also silently evaluated this guy. Not bad, his fighting style was very suitable for solo battles. However, he could not let him pass a minute. Easily. This minute was to make them realize the strength of the Lord they served, how strong he was. The purpose of this round of selection was to imprint it in their minds from the first meeting. The battle should also end now. Roma launched a powerful sword, rushing to Lucas. But through countless battles, he had learned to use everything to survive. He immediately threw a sandbag to blind Roma, then attacked again. But at this moment, he realized that the red eyes that were irritated by the sand were staring at him. Luca could only surrender in despair. In his previous life, he had been trained not to close his eyes when fighting in any situation. In an instant, the opponent could take advantage of that to win. Even if the sword was right in front of him, his eyes always stared at them. Lucas thought he would be punished for playing dirty, but Roma did not do that. Because trying to survive was also a skill that a warrior should have. From then on, the participants in the later battles all took advantage of all the tricks to stay for a minute, then were killed by him. It was a punishment, because they had crossed the line. But by then, through breathing and controlling his body well, he had reached an optimal state. Because of that, even if he fought for hours, his strength did not decrease at all. Battles like this were basically just warm-ups for him. Finally, round 2 ended. Chris announced the results. The number of people who passed round 2 was 0. They would choose 30 people out of 120 people here. The list would be announced later. That night, he personally selected 30 people and gave them to Chris. These people would be trained by him. When looking at the list, Chris could not understand it either because there were some people who did not deserve to be chosen. For example, Lucas, he was the first one to play dirty in the competition. He was the kind of person who could abandon his honor and teammates just to survive. Wasn't that very dangerous on the battlefield? But the young master said, "That's why I chose him." When everyone didn't think about playing dirty, he had a realistic way of thinking, which was to approach me and act like that. This kind of person usually shines on the battlefield. Chris also remembered his teacher's words, "The survivors on the battlefield are not knights like you and me. They can't use light energy, but they always stay calm and find a way to survive for themselves." And he prepared his team early because of the battle between the two families, Bako and Lauren. Flora had locked herself in her room since returning from the Dimitri family. She seemed to collapse, blaming herself for being the one who destroyed this family. She always thought she was smart. She had completed an advanced course in the academy with very good grades. From the bright smiles that her father always showed her, she used to think she was a good daughter. But really, I was nothing without my family by my side, just like the flowers in the glass cage. At that time, she didn't even have the confidence to face her father. But after thinking of Roma, who was once considered a waste but became a hero in everyone's eyes, she regained her spirit and went to the library to find a way to save the Lauren family. The rejections of support kept coming to the Lauren Lord. No one dared to oppose the power of the Bacon family, making them more desperate. The Bacon family declared, if Lauren did not pay off the debt or hand over the mortgaged land within a week, the Bacon family would declare a territorial war with Lauren with the permission of the central government. Because they had the support of the central government, they could not borrow money to pay off the debt either. Everyone was sinking in despair. Some people suggested surrendering. That way, their innocent soldiers would not have to die. The Lord agreed with this. At that time, they could not do anything else. At this moment, Miss Flora came here and expressed her opinion. At the same time, Roma also told his father that he would join the battle between the two families under his own name. This angered his father, because when they broke off the marriage between the two families, they had no right to join the battle at all. In the worst-case scenario, the central government would send troops to attack Dimitri's house. That would be a big problem. He had to tell his father about what happened when he went to Bacon's house. Before, people said Dimitri was the real strength of the Northeast, but Bacon thought they were under their command. He was sure his father was satisfied with the current situation, but Roman Dimitri was different. He wanted power and would not stand still and watch Bacon or the central government do nothing. His father also realized this when he met other nobles. They always looked at him as someone who was not of the same class, even though they were also nobles. Because from the beginning he was just a small blacksmith, who was lucky to become rich in wartime and was granted nobility. Not at all like them who had a history of thousands of years. He accepted that, but his son was too rebellious. His eyes seemed unshakable. In the end he accepted it and told him that no matter what trouble he caused, don't forget that there was always a family behind him to support him. Go ahead and play hard, son, don't worry about tomorrow. He went to his own forge. It was indeed worthy of being the largest forge in the kingdom of Cardio. No wonder Dimitri was the richest family in the Northeast. The iron ore behind the palace had the largest pre-order amount in the whole kingdom, and the blacksmiths of Dimitri's family could sell the iron mined here at a cutthroat price. For that reason, the nobles of Cairo's northeast never dared to oppose Dimitri. Besides being afraid of Dimitri's wealth, if they could not receive Dimitri's weapon supply throughout the kingdom, it would be a serious problem. He came here today to find Master Henrik. However, Dimitri's blacksmiths were very arrogant. They would not do what he said. Only those who could distinguish iron quality and handle them could gain their trust. And for someone who ate and drank all day like him, of course they hated him. Old man Harris mocked him as soon as he saw him. "What are you doing here?" Although his father had ordered it, this old man was still very stubborn. He called him back here to steal money for pocket money like before, right? Then he pointed to a pile of junk and told him he could choose 30 sets of armor for his soldiers there. "If you are not satisfied with this place, then please leave." He went there and picked up a sword to mock. It seems that the praises of Dimitri's iron equipment are just boastful. Is this also equipment for soldiers? The old man was angry with him. Dimitri's iron equipment is the best thing in Cairo, but a guy who has never sweated in front of the furnace dared to judge them. How ridiculous! If it weren't for Romoro's request, I would never give you anything. While your younger brother Rotwell spent many years as my assistant to inherit the family, the eldest son used his time to flirt with women on the street. Compared to the things on the ground, you are just a piece of garbage that can't be recycled. He was not angry, but calmly said to the old man. This sword was not adjusted evenly by the hammer force during casting, so much so that it changed color with the sunlight shining on it. It must be the product of an inexperienced blacksmith who did not master the use of the hammer. Is this worthy of Remixie's equipment? Do you think that because of your hatred for me, you can entrust the lives of 30 excellent warriors of Dimitri to this pile of waste? Can you bear that responsibility? His face suddenly became dangerous, threatening. This action of yours can be considered as disobedience to our father. Then he realized the weight of his words. The blacksmiths nearby also turned around because of him, but were stopped by him. The old man had to apologize to him for his previous action, because in the past, when he was a new blacksmith, after knowing a young warrior who needed a sword but couldn't afford it, he was the hope of his family to earn money to support his mother and children. Henrik kindly gave him his sword. But doing good deeds got him into trouble. Because of the poor quality of the sword, it broke during the fight and the young man also died. He regretted it very much. This was no different from killing him himself. The situation then was exactly like now. He let his emotions despise the lives of 30 warriors. He agreed to forge 30 sets of armor for him, the best in Roma, also to give him a way out, not to pursue his previous mistake. Henrik also realized that the young master had really changed and became a trustworthy person through the words of the blacksmith. Roma also knew that he had stolen the old man's masterpiece sword, which took 6 months to complete, and sold it at a cheap price just for fun. It turned out that he was the one who was wrong before, so the old man could only forgive him if he could create high-quality forged equipment worthy of being a son of the Dimitri family. To do this, Roman asked Han Butler to prepare everything for himself so that he could practice forging. Now let's get started. With his experience of forging swords in his previous life, he made countless swords. After countless battles, his sword kept changing until the 39th sword. It was called Demonic Cult Sword, a priceless treasure. That was the time for him to make a masterpiece again for himself. The powerful hammer blows were struck at a steady pace like squeezing lemon juice. The high concentration combined with fire god Gong made his whole body burn. The power was constantly burning to store mana. At the same time, Miss Flora proposed her idea to Lauren's family. If they could store food and hold out until winter, things would become easier. Then Bacco would have to bear a lot of pressure from the treasury because of the huge amount of money they borrowed to wage war. Moreover, when winter came, siege tactics would be ineffective. This was indeed very reasonable and accepted by everyone. The Lord decided to bleed himself to defend the city. That was their only way to live. Back to Roman, he had successfully created his own sword. Its name was Fire Dragon. He was ready for the upcoming battle. A week later, the Bacco side began to act. They declared that because the Lauren clan had not paid enough debt, they had the right to wage war according to clear regulations. The debt was just an excuse to start a war. Lord Lauren of course did not accept this. He would not put his people in danger. The battle began on the wall. Countless arrows were fired to stop the enemy army. The Bacco people were very confident when their army was 3 times stronger than Lauren's. They thought they would easily win in a few hours, but they were stopped by the solid wall. A moat was dug near the wall to prevent the enemy from approaching, along with countless arrows being shot out. It seemed that the Lauren house had prepared well to defend the city. Bacco decided to use that thing. With a loud bang, the wall was destroyed by a giant firework launcher. It was a giant magic launcher that exploded, specialized in attacking cities. Each shot consumed a lot of gold, and because it was a strategic weapon at that time, they only had one choice, which was to go out of the city and destroy the magic weapon, but this was like suicide. At this moment, there was a magic call from Roma. He would help her defeat the Bako house, for personal revenge. However, the Lauren house would have to accept some sacrifice. In addition, he needed an excuse to join this war, because their marriage contract had been cancelled before. As long as she said Anthony Bako had harassed her, she would have no other choice but to break off the engagement with Dimitri, because of being harassed by that beautiful name. The flower of her Lauren house would be shattered, but she would get an indispensable reason to solve the danger of the Lauren house. Only then could he join this war, because the Bako house had touched his fiancée. Before Flora, there was no other way, she could only agree. Another loud bang, the wall was destroyed by a magic cannon. An assassin rushed up to assassinate Lord Laura. Fortunately, Flora shot him in time. She said they would change tactics, open the city gate, and face the Bako people directly. This made him stunned. It was like looking for death. But Flora calmly replied, if we distract their attention by opening the city gate, then Roman Dimitri will be able to control his army to destroy their cannon. The city gate quickly opened. Lauren had to face an army 3 times larger than theirs. Moreover, among them were burgher mercenaries, whose strength absolutely overwhelmed ordinary soldiers. In front of their strength, the soldiers were scared and retreated. If this continued, it would be really over. They had to hold on until Roma's army arrived. At this time, Roman brought his army from behind. Their target was to destroy Bako's magic cannon. Lord Bako saw Chairman again and began to despise him. Only a few sycophants wanted to change the situation. Kill them all for us. Roma led the way. He alone broke through the enemy's defense. His strength made them tremble constantly. They had no fighting spirit left. Behind him his army also bravely rushed into battle. They wanted to kill all enemies. They followed Roma closely and fought beside him. Roma decided to rush straight ahead and destroy the magic cannon, but he was blocked by the mercenary leader. He is Burger, an A-class mercenary known by the whole empire. With a loud bang, they collided directly with each other, but Burger quickly realized that even though he had used all his strength, he seemed not to shake him at all. Next were Roma's continuous attacks, which made him unable to resist. He had only 5 seconds to reunite with his grandparents. Lord Bako, witnessing this scene, had to scream for all the soldiers to kill him. But that was impossible. Roman stood in front of the magic cannon, and his whole body emitted a terrifying dark power. He used a demonic cult sword technique to destroy the giant magic cannon. Bako's army lost their strategic weapon and had to retreat in this battle. Chris had used a different aura than before. He tried his best to condense aura as much as possible, like Roma did. As a result, his mana consumption was not much. Even when fighting fiercely, Chris was getting stronger and stronger. When following him, everyone was also exhausted from trying to keep up with the young master's fighting speed. Even so, no one was injured and left behind. It seemed that the training days before were not useless. Their mission was completed. Entering the city, the people here all regarded him as their hero, endlessly grateful. Lord Lauren also had to admire him, not expecting him to be so strong, no different from a fierce tiger. He entered the study room of the Lauren family. They were discussing whether to cease fire with Bako to preserve peace. It was completely contrary to his intention. Bako was currently facing economic pressure to repay the huge debt. They had no choice but to invade Lauren. They would not accept peace, on the contrary to the soldiers who had sacrificed outside. We could not forgive Bako either. We had to show the world how we avenged those beasts who dared to touch Lauren. On Lord Bako's side, they were very angry because he had seen this battle as a way to reverse the unfavorable situation. They only had one choice left, a duel. It was a sacred ritual. Both sides would send out their 3 strongest warriors. representing their families in the competition. Roman would participate on behalf of the Lauren family. So you don't have to worry, he was confident that he could defeat all the masters that Bacco invited. Chris would also participate in this match, although he was only a 2-star knight, but defeating a 3-star knight was not a problem. Lord Lauren finally had to accept this. With the consent of both parties, the grand duel was decided. The battle would take place within a week of sending the letter of command. Very quickly, the day of the grand duel arrived. The referee was the Count himself. If either side violated this rule, the Cairo kingdom would judge by honor. Now, both families appointed 3 knights and submitted their match list. Seeing their relaxed attitude, he realized that something was wrong. Perhaps they had invited a master, so they would have to change the order of the match. Chris would be the first one to fight. I would fight second and face Bacco's trump card. The match was quickly carried out. Chris's opponent was Ion Sun, a level 3 knight. He was only level 2. The match began, and the opponent immediately attacked like a storm, but he couldn't hit because he had less mana. He could only wait for an opportunity, a trump card. The opponent became more furious, releasing terrifying mana. He rushed forward, making him unable to dodge. At that moment, Chris remembered what the young master taught him: focus your strength on one point, then burst out. With a bang, the opponent's body was pierced, shocking everyone. He did it. A level 2 knight defeated a level 3 knight. He was indeed a genius. The second match was quickly carried out. Roma's opponent was Homerus, a level 4 swordsman. Everyone was terrified, knowing that he was the 49th ranked swordsman of the Kingdom of Hala, the Holy Land where swordsmen fought and died with honor. No one in Cairo didn't know his identity. He traveled around the kingdom, enjoying the thrill of dueling with strong opponents, so everyone called him the Wandering Swordsman. Facing the super strong opponent, Roma was not afraid at all, but rather excited, hoping he could fight for a while. Flora shouted at him, "Give up, at least save your life." There was no chance of winning this match, there was no reason for him to risk his life. But he wouldn't lose. The match has just started. The opponent rushed up to attack and wanted to solve him in one move. But he was avoided by him, and he also realized, the person in front of him is not easy. At this time, he had to release all his strength. The sword move was extremely powerful, and the terrifying power made the arena constantly tremble. Roma at this time only saw this guy acting like a clown, not happy at all. Therefore, there is no need to prolong the game anymore. He released the demonic cult sword, which was invisible and powerful, and forced the person to be unable to resist. He was immediately defeated. Chris also realized, the young master has become too strong after the first match. In a short time, he has become a monster. The match started, and the opponent rushed to attack, wanting to finish him in one blow. But he dodged it, then aimed at the vital point and stabbed it, but he was blocked and kicked painfully. Kelvin was constantly slashed by him, only able to endure. However, right after that, Kevin's body began to release a bloodthirsty energy source. His speed also became very fast. He looked like a demon. It was the effect of the demon soul magic skill. His sword pierced through the opponent's armor, even though he was hit by him, but Kelvin didn't stop. He was really crazy. In the end, he also defeated him. Kelvin's madness didn't stop there. He was really crazy and finally defeated him too. Kelvin's madness didn't stop there either. It was one slash after another, making everyone here dumbfounded and even more astonished. Just a moment later, he returned to his usual silly appearance. It was really an illusion. After that battle, people started to praise Roman's achievements everywhere. Roman was the savior of Lauren. He could single-handedly slaughter hundreds of Bacco's rear soldiers at once. He became a hero in everyone's eyes. At the same time, Lord Bacco was being pressured by the debt of the gold bank. All the families that had relations with him had abandoned him to save themselves. He had discussed this with the nobles in the northeast and blamed Roma Dmitri. He had no status but intervened in this war because of his surprise attack. Bako had lost his magic cannon. Even Lauren's soldiers who participated in the great battle were gone. He had no one left. In the end, what qualifications did Roman Dmitri have to help Lauren? This was an action that crossed the line. He just needed to push all the responsibility to the Dmitri family and get a huge compensation. The debt to the Golden Bank would also be solved at this time. Roman came here alone. What are you discussing about me? Lord Bako immediately put all the blame on him. But he hadn't finished talking about his status yet. Lauren and Dmitri were originally two families that had a marriage contract with each other. But now, he had become a fool who broke the marriage between the two families. It was because of Bako's eldest son. Because of Antoine Bako's threat, he had revealed all his previous schemes against him. There was another reason as well. Antoine had gone too far, harassing Flora, his fiancée. She had decided to cancel the marriage. She could also testify for this. He wanted to ask Lord Bako and everyone present here. Actually, he had no status to interfere in the war. He couldn't say a word at this time. Roma began to force him to punish his son by having a duel with him, or else, everything would be told to Lord Dmitri. By then, the Bako family would surely be annihilated. Anthony cried and begged his father, but he had no other choice. Even if he was the heir of the family, he would pay the price for touching him. Their fight took place right after that. He was trembling, crying, begging for mercy, and then he accepted death like that. He even threw away his dignity, acknowledged him as his master, just to keep his life. But it was useless. Roma sent him to see bananas with one sword strike. Lord Bako was in pain, holding his son's corpse, but he couldn't do anything to him, because life and death in battle were too common. He turned to the other families and threatened them. If you don't sever your relations with the Bako family, you are going against me and the Demichi family. He left like that, while they were still scared. A few days later, Bako was squeezed by the bank. He tried to escape and was found dead on a hill nearby. The Bako family, which once expanded its power in the northeast, died so miserably. Coincidentally, that night, Roma went for a walk and watched the moon. You can tell right away who did it, right? Although the incident with the Bako family was still very noisy, the Mello family still held a party from now on. Dmitri would be the central family of the northeast region. This was a perfect opportunity for the Mello family, which had always sided with Dmitri. His mother was also here. She was very welcome to please their family. She had an amazing political talent. Sometimes, even Count Romeo has to yield and fear his wife, right, brothers? After a few statements, everyone understood that she was silently threatening those who followed the Bako faction, while showing her generosity and accepting them to her side. Later, they started to arrange a marriage for their daughter to Dmitri. Before, when it came to marriage matters, they always pushed each other away. But now it's different. Roma has become too powerful and famous. His strength can crush a level 4 knight. How amazing is his talent? That's why they compete to get him as a son-in-law. His mother can only skillfully refuse. Meanwhile, Flora has found him more handsome since the battle between the two families. She has dropped a whole basket of eggs, but she still says she hates him. What a liar, girl. At this moment, her cousin Sivia appeared here. It turned out that their family would have a party at Dimitri's house, and the Lord wanted to connect the two families by setting up a marriage between Syria and Roma. Flora immediately wanted to go along to meet him again, despite her father's opposition. She is really crazy about him. Meanwhile, at the Valhalla Temple branch in Cairo, the priest evaluator of the Valhalla Knight ranking was very curious about Roma, the one who could defeat a level 4 knight in one strike. The next day, the ladies of the family came to the party at Dimitri's house. Sivia, Flora's cousin, also came here. However, seeing the scene here, she started to be disgusted, because compared to herself living in the capital, this place was no different from the countryside. When they saw a group of miners, they kept looking down on their dirty appearance. Only Flora recognized Roma among them. At this time, Butler Han also rushed here and wiped him clean, regretting that he could not stop him from going there. That's why he had such a dirty look. The girls, after knowing that it was him, started to turn around 180 degrees, because he was too handsome, and his body was even more perfect. They had to drop a whole basket of eggs. Sivia immediately came to greet him, but was ignored by him and could only stand aside angrily. Flora got a laugh out of it. Dimitri didn't want to waste time with those who were unworthy. After entering the mine, he realized that the iron ore that the miners had dug with blood and sweat was melted in the fire of the furnace and turned into iron. This was the essence of Dimitri. Empty words could not live with the people here. He only wanted to experience and sympathize. At the same time, Chris was training for Roma's soldiers, realizing that his prestige in the recent battle with the families had aroused loyalty and morale for the soldiers who had followed him in the battle. They had learned a lot from his training methods that he had accumulated before, along with his sword skills that he had acquired along with his ability to forge unique swords that he could create. He awakened the potential of the soldiers, helping them become good fighters on the battlefield. He also decided to teach Chris a new sword skill. He was different from the newcomers and could absorb advanced techniques. It was called Thunderbreaker. It was a sword skill with high damage and extremely fast speed. In his previous life, its owner, who was called Sword Saint Roma. Then he returned to the party and his handsome appearance made the girls unable to take their eyes off him, although he didn't like them very much. But he still had to act politely like a gentleman. Only Flora realized that he was just acting. They had a conversation outside on the balcony. They talked about Lauren's family. Everyone thought they got rich thanks to their fertile land and goods, but it wasn't true. In fact, Lauren's family succeeded thanks to trade. They sold or exchanged their goods to rise to their current position. That was also why the Earl Lauren's younger brother became a merchant in the capital. All of this amazed Flora, who had only learned about it recently. Roma also told her that he worked in the mine to understand Dimitri's origin. This made Flora realize something about him. A few days later, she went to the capital to leave her clan and explore the outside world. Half a month ago, after hearing that the young master Roma would work in the mine, everyone was buzzing. Some said he was just there to show off, and that he could never do such work. He only treated the blacksmiths well and always abandoned the miners. We 3 children of the Lord learned how to forge iron from a young age, but none of us learned how to mine. This was clear evidence that Mr. Dimitri discriminated against us. They were determined not to bow their heads before the master, and to show him what mining was like. When they saw him ignore them, however, Roma did not care about that in the mine. Everyone had clear work assignments. According to the rules, he could also recognize this. That was why they could complete the quotas assigned for the day. The old miner told him that normally the forges had to buy iron ore at a high price. So when they finished, they did not make much profit. The Dimitri family was different, they could supply high-quality iron ore themselves. Morgan, the veteran miner, told him not to work if he did not want to, and not to get in the way of others. If he just stood there, he should leave immediately. Sorry for not paying attention, this attitude made him also surprised. This was still the young master, why was he like this? A week passed, Roma worked in the mine and it seemed everyone avoided him. A young miner asked, "Why did you come here?" Even the 2 young masters had never been here, but you were different. In the past week, Roma had worked harder than anyone else. This made him very curious. Why did you come here? Roma said he wanted to experience the daily life of the people here to understand them better. Besides, he also wanted to contribute something to his family so that he could inherit the huge wealth of the Dmitri family. So Morgan opened his heart and answered his questions honestly. The size of Dmitri's iron mine was the largest in the kingdom, especially in the nameless land on the edge of the neighboring kingdom. If they could develop there, Dmitri's wealth would increase infinitely. The miner also told him about the difficulties in working. Mining speed was reduced due to dangerous working conditions, and when speed decreased, production speed also decreased. As soon as he finished speaking, an earthquake occurred inside mine shaft number 8 and it collapsed. More importantly, someone was injured inside.